Peter Pan and Wendy is, like I said, David Lowery's new feature from Disney. It is their latest live-action adaptation coming out just before A Little Mermaid in 2 weeks, 3 weeks. This one went straight to Disney Plus, which when we heard him talk about it, I don't recall him mentioning whether or not it was going to be straight to Disney Plus. Frankly, being Peter Pan, I would think that would be theatrical. Peter Pan's a pretty beloved Disney animation feature, but they decided not to with this one. And I think we're going to get into that, or at least I will. Peter Pan and Wendy is direct at remake of the original. It is the Darling family, Wendy and John and Michael, who were all up in their playroom one night before their parents, their esteemed parents are going out to a fine, ball or something. And they're like, don't stay up too late, kids. And Wendy's like, why do I have to go to bed early? They're like, because you're going to boarding school tomorrow. And she's like, but I don't want to grow up. And they're like, tough. All right. That's too bad. But then in the evening, Peter Pan arrives and is fairy Tinkerbell. And they say, well, come with us to Neverland, right? We'll never grow up. And they all fly off to Neverland. And it's there that they meet Captain Hook and the Lost Boys and Tiger Lily and the whole cast of Peter Pan characters, and they have a romp, and then they got a sword fight, and it's Peter Pan. And I really like old Peter Pan. Like I should say that. I think that old movie's solid. And I had hoped that between the magic of the old one and David Lowery, right, pulling a rabbit out of a hat like he did with Green Knight, that there would be something really special here. And uniquely, I think Peter Pan and Wendy ends up being less than some of its parts. I think if you're arriving for a Disney feature, you're going to be bummed. And if you're arriving for a David Lowery feature, you're going to be bummed. I don't know why. It's hard for me to nail down what exactly doesn't work, but I do want to talk about the things I liked in it and things I didn't. Andy, any reflections on old Peter Pan or the Green Knight, David Lowery's style? Like, give me a little room to breathe here.
Yeah, obviously big fan of David Lowery and the Green Knight. Very meditative kind of work. Actually, big fan of Hook.
Steven Spielberg feature. Yeah, Robin Williams.
Even though it's like 2.5 hours, which is long for essentially a kid's film. My big question is, how is Jude Law as Captain Hook?
That's a good question. Jude Law, I think, is pretty good in this feature as Captain Hook. It's not exactly the way the old one went. All of these Disney live actions have a bit of a tweak from the story, and they actually spend a little bit of time getting into Captain Hook's past. Because it's a question, right? Like, in a land of people who never grow up, how are there a bunch of adult pirates? And why is there a crocodile after him?
Yeah.
And why is there a ticking alarm clock, right? All good questions. And they do spend a little bit of time getting into where Hook comes from, which I think is smart. I think that's a good angle that many Peter Pan adaptations have taken from the original story since. I should also say, like, I think the kids are all pretty good. The girl who plays Wendy, I don't know her name. She will be in more stuff, I think. That's my hot prediction. She's got a bit of a Susan Pevensey vibe. If you remember, like, the middle girl from Chronicles of Narnia, like the older one. She's kind of like that. She's got the long face and she's charming and she does a great job of like emoting. I think she's solid. She does a good job serving John and Michael, who are mostly pushed to the background for this movie. Satisfyingly, you get much more Wendy, per the title. If anything, I think the kid who played Peter Pan is really good, but uniquely like doesn't get enough screen time. I feel like Lowery cuts away from him a lot. I can't explain it. Like I just feel like I see a lot more Tinkerbell and the other kids and a lot less of him. But again, it's not just called Peter Pan. It's Peter Pan and Wendy. And I think thematically that was important to this. Like, it's not just Peter Pan's kind of tale. It is about Wendy and this fear of growing older. And I think that's like a good departure to stop talking about Disney and start talking about David Lowery. David Lowery is a dour guy. Andy and I saw him at historic Texas Theater. And he talked about how Green Knight is about like his fear of death, and how Ghost Story was about like his fear of death, and about how Old Man and the Gun, which is the Robert Redford movie where he's like an old bank robber, is a bit about like
also the
idea of like what's next. Yeah, like what comes at the end. And Peter Pan and Wendy like actually has a charming through line of that kind of DNA of his, where she's genuinely like fearful of like what's next in her life. And she's like, I love my life now. I love hanging out with my brothers, John and Michael, and playing pirates. And I love living at mom and dad's house. And like, I don't want to change. Like, I don't want things to be different. And like, that's a scary thing. And this movie is a little bit about acceptance and like growing to like, not only look like accept what's happening to you, but look forward to it, right? And like look at it as an opportunity to grow and change and become somebody new. And that plays really great against Peter, who is a character who does not want to change, right? He lives in Neverland with the Lost Boys. Nobody ever grows up. And like I think Lowery really does a good job, like in the script, of kind of nailing that a little bit. And he spends a lot of moments with the kids kind of lingering. If you're watching on Facebook, you can see I've got this shot of a kind of teary-eyed Peter as he and Wendy are like sitting on a rooftop kind of talking to each other. Like he pulls way in and he's got a good field of focus, what's really tight on the face. And like he manages to get those like emotional moments. And that's combined with, I think, good cinematography. When step back, like Neverland in this movie is up in like, where did he film? Scandinavia? Like it's big cliffs and rock faces. If you watch the trailer, it's not the Caribbean, right? Where it's traditionally where Peter Pan is. It's like a pirates, right? An island, but no, like uniquely he's up north and like it's a little colder. It's a little drearier. This plays for a darker feature, which I think a lot of people have been criticizing because it looks like all of Disney's live actions really dark so they can hide the CGI. I don't think that helps it. The visuals do come off a little flat, but like I like this setting and I like this kind of lean on the script where like our characters are more than just like what was on the page. I think where it falls apart well, hold on. Andy, I should give you a chance to talk. I've been talking for 4 minutes. Any thoughts so far? Any questions?
How is it similar and how is it different from the kind of Peter Pan tellings that we've seen before?
Yes. Great question. That's exactly where I was headed. Perfect. You're right in front of me. This movie suffers from following too closely the dots of Disney's Peter Pan, because we've all seen the Peter Pan story a handful of times now, and they're all similar. Like even Spielberg's like gets pretty close to Disney's Peter Pan. Like starts in the playroom with the Darling children, and they're all playing, and mom and dad are going to a ball, right? Like it wavers, and that's where it gets exciting. But like it follows a lot of those same steps. Neverland, Captain Hook, Smee, the Lost Boys, right? Like they got their hangout, like Tinkerbell. In this movie, like it's too close to what the old one did. You know every story beat before it happens. There's no excitement in that script. Like you know exactly where everything's headed. There are a couple of minor variations, very minor, but you know where it's going. And the problem is like, it's too dark, I think, to be a kid's movie that's enjoyable. I can't see a child enjoying Peter Pan and Wendy. They'd be bored. But it's too paint by numbers to be a good adult movie. Like you end up with like a style, like a movie stylistically that's David Lowery, but in practice is a Disney movie, and it doesn't really work. Like it doesn't thread the needle in either way. And it ends up being kind of a misfire. And it's a shame because I think, when you look back on David Lowery's filmography, I think this one actually is not bad. But like for what it's supposed to be, a Disney live action does not hit the mark. Like it ends up being bland and dull.
I wonder if it was given the kind of theatrical treatment, like something that they would make for theatrical release, if that would have made a difference.
I don't know. Like I don't know how much it cost to shoot, but it couldn't have been that cheap. There's definitely a lot of CGI in it, but like they definitely have a real pirate ship set, like that they're running around on, you know, and there's like a big cave scene that they're in with water tanks. And I'm like, okay, like, so for all the CGI, like there's a lot of money off screen too. It's just colored kind of flat. The music's not too exciting. Like the kids are fine, but you know what's going to happen. I could, Andy, you probably haven't seen the Peter Pan movie in 10 years, and I could have you write down what you think the plot points of Pan are, and you would have right. the plot of this film. Yeah, it's the same. Like, and that hurts it. Like that hurts it a lot. That's something I think all of these movies kind of suffer from. Mm-hmm. And I'm kind of dreading going into The Little Mermaid, because it's like you literally know the whole movie before you've sat down in the theater, you know, like there will be no surprises. Nothing will take your breath away. Like it's just, and that's a bummer. And that's not great. So I should move on to the recommendation, because I've gone way too long on this. Andy, I think I would probably not recommend Peter Pan and Wendy. Like I think in the rear view, like in 5 years when somebody is looking at the filmography of David Lowery, they'll come onto this one, roll their eyes, watch it, and go, you know what? That's not a bad David Lowery movie. Like I think it's emotional where it needs to be. It's well shot. He's got some. It opens with a great oneer. I was just telling Andy before we started that I really like a lot of good sequences, strong camera movement. Like if it didn't have Disney's name on it and it was just a little bit different from the traditional Peter Pan story, I would say this is David Lowery's Peter Pan, and it's not bad. But like the Disney needle running through the middle of it, where it's gotta have the same damn beats.
If this were David Lowery's Peter Pan, it would be devastating. Like people,
yeah,
you would be able to, you'd walk out of it a different person.
You can like it's like you can just feel him reach for that, and then a studio exec slap his hand away from the table. Like, hey, stop that! Like we're not going to be dark and grim and dour in Disney's Peter Pan. And like it's a shame. Like I think there's a world where like David Lowery's Peter Pan is good stuff, and like this just doesn't quite get there. And honestly, I think Disney might be the problem. But I like David Lowery a lot. That's easy for me to say. It's on Disney Plus. If you want to watch it, go off, King. You know, do your thing. Like who am I to say you shouldn't watch Peter Pan and Wendy? I just, it's a movie you could. What as I told you? It's a movie you could put your laundry on while you're watching it. And when you get bored or get to a scene that you already know how it's going to happen, you can get up and go to the bathroom or whatever. It's fine. David Lowery's Peter Pan is fine. It bums me out, man, but I'm glad Guardians was good. Overall, it's a pretty good week of the movies, and it turns out we have kind of nothing to watch next week because Guardians is taking the whole pie. 2 weeks at the box office.
Yeah, that's right. But before that, we do have a little bit of a death of cinema to cover.
Oh, God, I forgot. Oh, no. Okay, good. I'm glad we're ahead of time then. We got a little bit of time left.
Forgets to read the outline, but it's okay.
I sure did. Well, I didn't.